It kind of seems like everyone is in love with nostalgia lately. It's almost ironic how the trendiest content of 2024 looks like it was shot in the 1990s. I am so fascinated by our cultural obsession with nostalgia. From endless reboots of movies that were popular during my childhood, to the rising trend of YouTubers filming on old cameras, to the ever-present fallacy of the good old days. We just can't seem to shake this collective fixation on the past. Or how we remember the past, anyway. I want to explore why we're all down bad for that fuzzy VHS vibe in our videos. And because it's me, you know I'm going to show you some practical tips for how you can make your vlogs look like this too, if you want. To explore this obsession myself, I recently bought a new camera. This little camcorder was released in the mid-2010s. And look, I know that's not that retro by any means, but it still gives the vintage vibes of the home movies that were filmed of my childhood. All while still being available for purchase on Amazon, which I'll link it below if you're interested. Personally, I think what defines the camcorder vibe is what some people call the dad zoom, which admittedly my own dad was very fond of. When you zoom in with this camera, you don't really lose focus much, and you have pretty much no lens compression. Just compare this shot of the flowers on my kitchen counter. We've got the camcorder on the left and my telephoto lens on my Sony ZV-E10 on the right. You can see how you get that quintessential cinematic blurry background effect on the telephoto lens, but on the camcorder, the background pretty much stays in focus. Undeniably, these two cameras have a very different vibe. The camcorder footage just looks like my memories of childhood. And to fully put this camera to the memory making test, we're taking it to California. Why is everyone obsessed with nostalgic videos anyway? Well, one theory is it reminds us of our childhoods, though mine was captured on videotape, not digital camcorder, to be honest. Nostalgia in general is an attractive feeling because it reminds us of a time that we see as less complicated, less full of stress and worry. Though in truth, that's a trick of childhood. The world was in a simpler place when we were filming home movies on camcorders. It just felt like it because we were kids. But nonetheless, the visual cues of these types of videos bring up those feelings of safety and belonging, of summer evenings that seem to last forever, and the magic of Christmas morning. And so using those aesthetics in our current videos allow us to see a time that went by more recently in a kind of warmer light.
Welcome to San Diego local time, 10:33 a.m. Please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened and your baggage stowed until the seatbelt sign has been set.
Dang, this is nice. I think a tour is in order. Now that I'm about 10 times more presentable, I suppose I should tell you where I am. I am here in San Diego for Sony Camera Camp. Those of you who were around last summer will know that I went last year. It was my absolute dream to be invited out, and I'm just so happy to be here again. Basically, it's a week of hanging out with other creators, learning more about Sony cameras and lenses, and getting the chance to shoot a bunch of cool stuff. So let's go check it out. Look who it is! Oh my gosh!
We finally meet in person!
So let's talk about how you can start making your own nostalgic vlogs. There are honestly a few very easy tweaks that you can make to give your vlogs a serious vibe shift. And the first one is making your videos 4:3 aspect ratio. You may have noticed that sometime between your childhood and today, videos stopped looking like this and started looking like this. We went from almost square to widescreen. We call this aspect ratio, the ratio between the horizontal and the vertical dimensions of your video. Videos now are typically 16:9, but your home movies almost certainly are in 4:3, at least if you're my age or older. So if you want to give a more vintage look to your content, you can start by adding black bars on the left and right hand side of your video, or you could make your entire sequence in 4:3 when you're editing. If you only want some of your video to be in 4:3 and other parts to be widescreen 16:9, then you're gonna wanna add what we call letterboxes. I actually found some free templates that I'll link in the description that you can use, and all you have to do is click and drag the one that you want onto your sequence in Premiere, and it will add the properly sized black bars to leave you with a 4:3 video in the middle. If you want your full video to be in 4:3, then you can actually change your sequence settings, and you can upload a 4:3 video to YouTube, and then the YouTube player will essentially become the black bars. All you have to do is in Premiere, go to File, New Sequence, and then Settings, and change your frame size to 2880 by 2160 if you want a 4K video in 4:3. If all of this editing and Premiere Pro setting stuff gets you overwhelmed, don't worry, you don't have to do it alone. My agency, Creatorly Media, provides services to content creators, including YouTube editing, and we are actually currently accepting new YouTube clients. We have a few spaces open, so if you're curious about that, go to creatorlymedia.com to check out all of the details. We'd love to work with you. It's camera camp day 2, and we are headed for breakfast. So Sony just announced the release of a brand new camera, the ZV-E10 II. As you probably already know, I have been a fan of the ZV-E10 for a long time. That's been my go-to camera. Pretty much everything on this channel is shot on that. And the ZV-E10 is a really nice little upgrade. Changing up the color grading of your video is another major way that you can give it a more vintage vibe. One of the classic ways to color grade footage to make it look a little bit more retro is by 1, adding red in the shadows, 2, adding a little bit of green in the highlights, and 3, lifting your shadows, basically making them a bit brighter to give it that faded film kind of look. And you can also decrease the contrast a little bit to help with that. So you can do this in Premiere Pro by first dragging an adjustment layer across the top of all of your clips, and then you're gonna add the Lumetri color effect to the adjustment layer. I like to do it this way because then the adjustment layer will affect all of the clips beneath it, and you can change these settings universally rather than trying to copy and paste your Lumetri color effect across all of your clips. From there, you're gonna start with basic correction, and you can drag up the shadow slider just a little bit. Then go into the creative settings, drag the shadow tint just slightly towards the red and the highlights tint just slightly towards the green. You want to be quite careful with this. You don't want to go overboard and make it look crazy, but doing this in a subtle way can really help make your videos feel more filmic. Finally, under curves, you can create a little S curve. Make sure the white is selected, and you want to take the tail of the S, which is in your shadows section of the graph here, and just lift it up slightly. Finally, under creative, there is a slider for the faded film effect as well, and you can play with that until you're happy with how it looks. Yacht night fit. With With this tip, we are really cranking up the vintage vibes. One of the best ways to give your video a retro look is with some vintage inspired overlays. And if you throw in some sound effects, it'll really sell the vibe. For example, this 8mm film inspired overlay. I use this all the time when I'm showing old footage from my YouTube channel back in the day, or even home movie clips. All you need to do is grab the video clip and drag it onto your timeline on the layer above your video clip. Then add on the Ultra Key effect to that clip and use the eyedropper tool to select the green part of the overlay. This way it'll key out that green color and make it transparent, so it'll show the video playing underneath. To really sell this effect, I like to use a camera shutter sound effect when I transition from like a regular video over to that overlay. It just kind of reminds me of the sound of like a slide projector. It just helps with the transition a bit. You can also add film grain and dust overlays or film light leaks. These all really contribute to making your video feel nostalgic. I personally like to get my overlays and sound effects from Storyblocks, who's sponsoring today's video. So Storyblocks is an online stock media library that has everything from stock footage to animation templates to background music to sound effects. And you can get it all for one simple monthly subscription. So you don't need to stress about paying per clip and have that add up. And everything you download from Storyblocks, you have full permission to use in your YouTube videos and your content across social media. You don't need to worry about getting content ID. I personally love using the Storyblocks plugin in Premiere Pro because it means I can search for the stock footage or the overlays that I need without having to even leave the app. You can get all the sound effects, overlays, and stock footage that you need to make your videos feel nostalgic on Storyblocks. So make sure you go check that out. Go to storyblocks.com/Katie to sign up. And as always, thank you to Storyblocks for sponsoring today's video. So of course, if you want to give your videos a vintagey film, then one thing you can do is film on a vintagey camera. I talked about this before. I just got this camcorder. It is the Sony CX405. It's just fun to use. It's really like not good quality, right? But there's something liberating about that that just makes you feel like you can just point it and film anything, and it doesn't matter if it's like framed nicely or crisp quality. You kind of just wing it and you don't worry about it that much, and you get some like vintage vibes kind of shots. But you really don't need a camera like this as much as it's fun. It actually might be more practical for you to have an all-around camera and then apply the vintage like editing techniques that I've talked about to that footage to give it that vibe. Because then ultimately you have the option, like if you film everything with this, it's all gonna look like that. So in that case, there might be other cameras that are more practical for you, including the one that Sony has just released while I've been here at Camera Camp. So this is the new ZV-E10 Mark II. I've been shooting with the original ZV-E10 for a long time. So this is my like kind of current go-to setup. It's the ZV-E10 with the 11mm and the ECM G1 microphone, which I love because it's so cute and small. Sony has given everybody at Camera Camp a ZV-E10 Mark II to try out for the week with the 16-50 lens. I do think this is a pretty good vlogging setup. There's some upgrades from the original, mainly that this one shoots in 4K 60 frames per second. It has a new microphone, which is the same as the ZV-E1, the kind of full frame older sister to these cameras. So I really do feel like this camera could be a beautiful option for you if you want something that is just all around high quality. If you want to have some videos have a vintagey vibe, you can add those overlays, you can color grade it differently, but then you can also have some just really high quality crisp footage for when you're not in a nostalgic mood. My truly transparent and honest opinion with you with these cameras, if you already have the ZV-E10 Mark I, I don't know if it's worth buying a whole brand new camera for these upgrades. I mean, having 4K 60 frames per second is pretty big. Is it worth it though to spend like $900 to get it? That's gonna be up to you. But if you don't have a camera for YouTube yet and you're still trying to find a really good one, I do think like buy the ZV-E10 Mark II ahead of the original if you haven't got one yet. But ultimately, if you already have the Mark I, you're gonna have to decide if the 4K 60 and the upgraded microphone is enough to make you wanna splurge on a new camera. What I am thinking about though is getting a full frame camera. I'm currently filming on the Sony a7C Mark II. I really like how it looks. You can get a wider field of view, and yeah, that might be my personal upgrade because I feel like that would be enough of a difference to make it worthwhile upgrading from this guy. But the ZV-E10 Mark I, the original, has worked very hard for me over the years. All of the videos on my channel from the past like 2 years have pretty much been filmed on it, so really can't fault this camera, but we'll see. We'll see whether I end up upgrading. I'll let you know. As much as nostalgia can be beautiful, appreciating your past and looking back on your life grateful for your experiences, it's also important to balance that with living in the moment. And I really tried to embrace that during my time at Sony Camera Camp this year, which is why my vlogging was maybe a little bit patchy, but hopefully you enjoyed it nonetheless. Whether you decide to give your vlogs a vintage feel or not, my hope for you is that you can still try to be present in your moments as you're experiencing and documenting them. If you want more vlog editing tips from me, you should check out this video next. And shout out to you for being a part of the end of the video club. If you made it to this point, let me know in the comments because you are part of an elite squad and I really appreciate you. So check out this video next, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having adventures and following your dreams, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.